Hey, welcome to Half the Battle, and welcome back, my friends, to main character May. We're still looking at Serpentor. And today, we'll be talking about the cartoon character. You know how my conclusion about the comic book was that he was a great character that was a pleasure to read about? Yeah, this isn't gonna be like that. At all. Serpentor first shows up in the opening 5-part miniseries of the second season called Arise, Serpentor, Arise. Yeah, big shock there. Now, you'd think he'd be heavily featured in the series that has his name, right? Yeah, he doesn't show up until the very end of episode 4. I'll briefly go over the miniseries. Just the highlights, mind you. I'm not doing a review of all those episodes right now. After yet another military defeat thanks to Cobra Commander...
Retreat! Abandon the bats and flee! Cobra Commander has blown it again!
Dr. Mindbender has a dream prompting him to create a new Cobra leader using DNA. He calls a meeting to discuss it, and everybody is on board. Well, except for Cobra Commander.
Treachery! I accuse you of vile acts of base treason!
The, fearless leader of Cobra is soon outvoted, though. Unlike the comic, where the DNA gathering was already mostly finished when the story began, here 3/4 of the miniseries are dedicated to tomb raiding. So I'm gonna skip most of that. Though I will say the cartoon gives us the most comprehensive list of DNA donors of any media. Here are the ones we know about from Arise, Serpentor, Arise. Alexander the Great, Napoleon, Ivan the Terrible, Genghis Khan, General Amon Thoth, Vlad the Impaler, aka Dracula, Montezuma, Julius Caesar, Geronimo, Rasputin, Hannibal, Eric the Red, and Attila the Hun. And that's only a partial list because the cartoon states there are dozens more.
Attila the Hun, Eric the Red, Rasputin, dozens more.
Anyway, near the end of all the tomb raiding, Cobra tries to get Sun Tzu's DNA, but they are thwarted by Sergeant Slaughter. Mindbender decides to use Slaughter's DNA instead, since he's the greatest living soldier. Professional wrestler Slaughter, the greatest living soldier. Really? With all DNA in place, they create Serpentor.
You didn't make us an emperor! You made us a monster!
Well, the beta version anyway. Yeah, thanks to sabotage, they fail. So, they try again. And this time, it works. Though Slaughter prevents them from using his DNA.
Go Certes! For I am Serpentor, and this I command!
Serpentor assumes power, and the first plan of this amalgamation of history's greatest military leaders is... invade Washington, D.C.
We shall invade the United States and subjugate G.I.Joe immediately!
What a bold strategy! Glad Cobra went through all the trouble to create the perfect leader.
You magnificent bastard, I read your book!
Others tried to advise restraint, but...
Invasion is easy, but holding U.S. territory
is all but impossible. For Serpentor, nothing is impossible!
Yeah, he has no patience and is quick to anger. And sure, Cobra captures the Capitol building, the White House and the Pentagon, but when the Joes launch a counteroffensive, Serpentor's forces soon run out of ammo, their planes run out of fuel, and everybody runs out. They just run out. Serpentor is saved by Cobra Commander and gives a reason for sticking around.
But who will you blame when your loyal vipers realize how imperfect you really are? You need me for a scapegoat.
So yeah, while the beta version was really bad, the release version wasn't much better. And for the rest of Season 2, there's a certain pattern to Serpy's behavior. Cobra comes up with a plan, and the plan works fairly well, But then Serpentor loses his patience when he feels things are taking too long and screws everything up due to his haste. There's only one episode in the regular season that really focuses on Serpentor. It's called My Favorite Things, where he sends Cobra on a quest to find relics of his DNA donors. We learn a few more things about Serpy here. For one thing, 3 more DNA sources are revealed. Henry VIII, but also Ulrich the Batterer, who's just made up I think, and Takshaka the Reptile King, who's a mythological creature from India. Yeah, they have all of history to choose from, and they still want to use fictional people. Secondly, having their relics imbue Serpentor with their powers.
And now that I've recovered my axe, Skull Splitter, I am something more!
Oh, and he can now assume their facial features. Also, his blood is a deadly poison.
Poisoning by the most deadly venom on this planet. A dart tipped with my blood!
That's handy, I guess? And finally, he can drink serpent's venom that's also acid.
How refreshing!
Let me try.
If you wish.
I miss when things were sane. By the way, all that crap that I just mentioned, never brought up again after this episode. And that's pretty much the regular Sunbow series. Which brings us to the movie. Does it have to bring us to the movie? Can we just not? Okay, fine. Very briefly. First of all, there is of course this.
Cobra! La, 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 la.
That's the sound I'll hear until I die. The most important thing regarding the movie is how it affects Serpentor's creation. Yeah, they sort of retcon it. It turns out Mindbender got the idea and know-how on how to create Serpentor from a brain bug that a bunch of bug people gave him to replace Cobra Commander, because the Commander was their agent and he was a failure in their eyes.
No! Serpentor is the product of my genetic engineering!
I implanted the idea and the skill in Dr. Mindbender's rather pedestrian brain with this, a psychic motivator.
Oh, you thought we were done with the crazy? Not even close! They do give a subtle hint Serpentor isn't all they hoped for either, though.
Put him in with the Joe prisoners so they can see the fate which awaits them.
I like that. It's poetic in its simplicity.
Now that is one hell of a backhanded compliment. One thing in the movie I did like is how they validated my criticism in part 1 of this review, where I said the turbine on the air chariot was dangerous for anybody wearing a frickin' cape, since that's exactly how Serpentor gets screwed over in the film. Oh, and to add to the crazy, the snakes that make up his shoulder pads are actual snakes that turn into spears. Yeah, I could never figure that one out myself. Let's leave the movie behind us, in fact let's never talk about it again, and move on to his final appearance. That would be in the opening miniseries of the Deke cartoon, Operation Dragonfire. Serpentor's going after the Dragonfire, a special energy thingamajig. During this adventure, Cobra Commander, who had been turned into a snake in the movie, just go with it, returns to humanoid form.
I was once a man.
After a brief power struggle, which honestly was pretty well done, Dragonfire was the best G.I.Joe cartoon Deke ever made, Serpentor is dethroned. And they use the Dragonfire to turn him into an iguana.
I will join you with Nogahard's pet iguana.
I told you the crazy wasn't over! And that's the last time we see Serpentor in the cartoons. They do say the iguana transformation is temporary, but the Dreadnought Nogahide insinuates he's gonna barbecue him.
Hey, Serpentor! What do you say we throw another iguana on the barbie? I hear they're just delicious.
And since, like I said, we never see Serpentor again, well, draw your own conclusions. And that was Serpentor, the cartoon character. And he sucked! Big time! Maybe it was a mistake to look at the comic first, because it just makes cartoon Serpy so much worse. Here, he's a short-tempered, impatient bully who gets things done by yelling, threatening, and physically abusing the people under him. And all of this, according to the miniseries, is due to him not having Sun Tzu's DNA? You know, I'm pretty sure Julius Caesar was patient. See my last episode where I talked about the siege of Alicia for far too long. So, does cartoon Serpentor have no redeeming features? Is there nothing nice I can say about him? Well, yes I can. There is at least one moment where his comic character shines through. As I said in one of my Halloween specials, the episode Sins of Our Fathers has Cobra Commander raise Great Cthulhu from his slumber to kill Serpentor. Again, just go with it. The monster appears to be completely unstoppable, so Serpentor decides to lure it away from the Terrordrome, thus saving Cobra and dooming himself.
Then I must lure the creature away from the Terrordrome in order to save Cobra.
It's honestly his most badass moment in the cartoon. The only other nice thing I can say is, he sounded great. He was voiced by Richard Gauthier, who sadly passed away in January of 2017, who did an amazing job. Though, to be accurate, in the T-cartoon he was voiced by Maurice LaMarche, who also did a great job. In conclusion, this was not a good character, especially compared to the comic book. They tried to make an intimidating leader, but we soon learned the Emperor had no clothes. Also, his catchphrase got real annoying real fast.
And this I command!
Next week, main character May will be drawing to a close. We'll be taking a look at the character overall, its history, and we'll draw our conclusions. Well, I'll see you next time, everybody. And hey, why not like, share, and subscribe if that's your thing?